he would cure him of leprosy. Naaman went to his master and told him what the girl from Israel had said. "By all means go," the king of Aram replied. "I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. The letter that he took to the king of Israel read, "With this letter, I am sending my servant Naaman to you so that you may cure him of his leprosy." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Today's sermon is about encouragement, specifically God's encouragement. And we will look at encouragement from an Old Testament standpoint, encouragement from a New Testament standpoint, and then we'll take a look at what it looks like today. And so, Naaman, this guy's a soldier, and he's not a soldier, he's a commander of the army. He's got leprosy. This guy was for all intents and purposes, he was a stud where he was at. I mean, big, had a commanding presence, and he came down with leprosy. And this happens during the time of the prophet Elisha. There's Elijah with a J, and then there's Elisha, S-H-A. And so I'm going to back up just a little bit about Elisha, the prophet, with an A, S-H. So Elijah said, "You're going to be the next prophet. You're the one. You're anointed." And Elijah had big feet, big shoes to fill, because he had, he basically, in front of the balls, and we discussed this a few weeks back, but when put to the test, who could burn the wood, whose God could burn the wood and light the wood on fire, when challenged whose God was more superior, it was Elijah that lightning rained down and burned up all of the wood and confirmed that the God of Israel, our God, was the true God, not the pagans. And so he was up in his age, and Elisha was taking the reins over. Basically, it was like, I can't do this. It was like, this is something that is not in my, because he performed a lot of miracles. He opened up the Jordan a few times, and so he's looking up at his mentor, and he's like, I'm not the guy. I can't do this. And encouragement. Elijah continued to encourage him and let him know that God will provide what is needed for you to be the prophet. And so fast forward from that, he obviously got his sea legs underneath him and started being the prophet that Elijah thought he would be. And so fast forward to Naaman, who's this commander of an army. He has leprosy. He's like Tom Cruise in Top Gun. And he's just falling apart. And so at his wit's end, he hears about the possibility of being healed by this prophet. And so when he goes to Elisha wouldn't even grace him with his presence. Elijah stayed inside his house, and he sent somebody out to let him know that what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go to the Jordan, which at that point was really a muddy river. and you're going to have to immerse yourself 7 times to get rid of your leprosy. And so where he came from, Aram, where Naaman came from, there were plenty of really nice, clean rivers. And so he's like, this guy won't even come out to tell me in person what I need to do. And he wants me to go into this muddy water. And he's dressed up in his soldier garb, you know, with his chest high and his plate up. And he basically was refusing. And it was through his men encouraging him and saying, just go. He might not have asked you to do some great thing, but just try it. And they encouraged him, just try it. And so he finally begrudgingly walks out, walks into the Jordan, the muddy river, immerses himself 1 time. Goes back in, immerses himself 2 times. Not much is changing, so I'm sure there was some, doubt. 3rd time, immersed. 4th time, 5th time, 6th time. On that 7th time, as he came out, his skin was healing. He went into town, basically said, your God is the God. And there was I think it was a little boy or a little girl sitting, kind of was a part of this whole thing, watching. And he said, I want to take the earth from here and take it back to my homeland. And the kid said, why does he want to take the earth back? And I assume he overheard that and said, because I want to build an altar to worship your God with burnt offerings. So it was through encouragement. Might not have been exactly what he wanted to do, going into a muddy river that, didn't seem like this grand thing, this grand miracle to get rid of his leprosy. But through encouragement and getting through that, he was healed, and through that he became a supporter of God. Those encouraging words. And that was in the Old Testament. And so, another interesting warrior in the New Testament, in Matthew 8, was Capernaum. He was an officer in the Roman army. And he was called the Centurion, a Centurion, which basically means he's over 100 people. Okay, so he was kind of a big deal too. And he came to Jesus because his servant, who was a young boy, was sick. And he told Jesus, he said, I know that you can heal him. He had faith. I mean, just, he was full of encouragement. He knew. And in reply, Jesus healed his servant and said, it is your faith that saved him. He was encouraging, in a sense, he was encouraging Jesus by saying that he knew and he felt that it would happen, and it was that encouragement that Jesus saw, that faith that led to that healing. And so, has anybody heard of the Butterfly Circus? I was looking for you last night because I watched it again last night. And we'll watch that. And I will send a copy of it. But the story is, there's a circus. It's called the Butterfly Circus. And it is like the premier. It's the Barnum and Bailey. Okay? And they're going to their next destination. And as they're going to the next destination, one of the actors of that circus, his son says, let's go to this sideshow, because there was a sideshow. And it was kind of begging him, and Garcia, who was over the Butterfly Circus, looks at him, and he's like, okay, we'll go. And so when they go, it is a sideshow for sure. I mean, it's a humiliating sideshow where they're making fun of the bearded lady, they're making fun of all kinds of people that are outcasts, and their leader is doing that and encouraging that, okay? And there's a man who's limbless. His name is Will. And so they go up to this stage, and Will is by himself on a chair, and the presenter pulls back the flag, and he said, even God has turned his back on this man who has no limbs, born with no limbs. Basically just making fun of him, putting him down. And Garcia, who was the leader of the Butterfly Circus, he has this look of fascination, and he's just looking at Will. And he walks up to Will, and he said, I mean, just with sincerity on his eyes, he said, you're magnificent. And you would think that the response from Will would have been one of appreciation, possibly. But somebody who's been made fun of and put out as a sideshow and put down had anger. He spit. Didn't know who Garcia was. He spit on Garcia's face. And Garcia, the reaction easily could have been what? I mean, being angry, upset. But instead it was just kind and apologetic and kind of, I'm sorry. And so he and his team, they get up and they walk away, and as they walk away, one of the guys in the sideshow grabs Will, the guy who has no limbs, and says, do you know who that is? And he's looking at him kind of angry, kind of snarling. He's like, I don't know. He said, that's the Butterfly Circus. That's Menendez. He said, that's the best circus in the world. And he just was sad. But the interesting thing is during the next set, when the guy's about to pull open the curtain and saying, God's turned his back on. Well, he pulls the curtain, and he's not here. And at the same time, Menendez, Garcia, their whole team is getting ready to leave. And one of the guys, the strong man of his crew, is putting something in the back of the truck. And what's in the back of the truck? He said, there's a body back here. And Garcia looks over, and there's Will, packed up in the back of the truck, because he just wants to be a part of something special. And Menendez, Garcia, could easily have said, no way, you spit on my face. You're not a good guy. But instead, with forgiveness and care, he included them in their group. And so so Will was watching as they rehearsed. And Garcia was just encouraging. He said, this is different. This show is different. He said, can you see the strong man? And then the back of that strong man, they showed him getting in fights, stumbling over drunk. His past life. And now he's this strong guy that's lifting two of the acrobats up with two hands. All right? And so what Garcia is doing is he's encouraging his whole team. He's finding that speck of gold, and he's making it shine. He's making them just really feel special. Okay, so Will doesn't have an act. You know, he's a limbless guy, and they're all hanging out at a lake. And Will's over here, and there's like in order for him to get to where everybody's at, he's either got to walk through some limbs and some logs, or he's got to swim. And you can imagine if you don't have any limbs, you're probably, a little nervous about that. And so he's yelling over to everybody, come get me, come get me. And everybody's kind of ignoring him, not paying attention to him. Not to be unkind, but they were, everybody was doing stuff. And so he gets the gumption enough, and he's walking across this log. And he falls down into the water, plunges down. And one of the guys is like, where's Will? And they're like, oh my gosh, I think he fell down. And they're starting to go over towards him. The next thing you know, without anybody's help, Will pops his head up, okay? And he can swim. He has little appendages that give him just enough to be able to swim. And fast forward, there's a small bucket, probably literally about the size of what I can reach up. All kinds of people at the circus, all around. And I might get upset just because it's so awesome. The scene that comes out, but he's up 50 feet high. Everybody's around, and he drops and lands directly in the bucket and makes it up, and everybody's cheering for him. Everybody's happy for him. But the part that I'm getting upset about is after that, he's sitting, and there's people around, and there's a kid that's on crutches that can barely walk. And he's just coming over to Will, and he gives Will a hug. He just holds on to him. So, through encouragement, we can impact people big time. And that's what this story was about. It was about taking somebody who was an afterthought, that people thought God had turned his back on, and all of a sudden he was an inspiration to a child who could barely walk. And so, encouragement is so important. So when we walk through our lives over the next week, and hopefully continuing, whenever we see that time where we can encourage people, it's so important. It's so important. Encourage each other. Encourage your kids. Encourage, everybody that you can encourage. And so, real life, my life, I was telling some people earlier that I play pickleball. And it's becoming a really popular sport. It's growing fast. It's kind of a combination between tennis and ping pong. And so I partnered up with a guy to play this weekend in a tournament. in Greenville yesterday. And for the past 2 weeks, we've been practicing. And we out of 10 games that we played together, maybe more than that, we might have won 3. And in my mind, I was thinking, man, are we going to be able to even win a game at this upcoming tournament? And the whole time, I could have talked negative about him, you know, to other people and friends that we play with. You know, I could have, you know, said, I don't know what's going on. He's hitting the ball out all the time. He's doing this, he's doing that. But instead, I didn't say anything, and I encouraged him and just said, I know that you're practicing and working on things, and I know that you're, you know, that when it comes down to game day, you're going to be on. And I kept encouraging with him and everybody around. It wasn't just to him, but it was with everybody, you know. And so we got up about, well, I got up about 7. We met at 8 at the Moose Cafe. I don't know if you guys heard of the Moose Cafe by the farmers market. Okay, we met there, and we rode down together. And I shared. He didn't know why I'd become a pastor, and I shared with him my testimony and my story. And he shared some things about his life, encouraging things about his life. And really, that's all we talked about for the whole trip, an hour trip down to Greenville. Just shared each other's thoughts about God and about life. And so we get there, and I'll tell you, he played better than I did. He was lights out. We were 5-1, and we ended up, and Laura's going to make fun of me for doing this, but we took gold in 4.0, which is an advanced division. And I share that, not because it's cool, because I got a gold medal playing pickleball. I share that because encouraging other people, being positive, having faith in other people, like the Centurion had faith in Jesus, having faith in people, encouraging others, that's a beautiful gift that we can share with people every day. And so that ends today's sermon of encouragement. Please stand for Go Make of All Disciples, page 571. and keep us. The Lord make his face to shine upon us and be gracious to us. The Lord lift his countenance upon us and give us peace. Amen.
Organ sounded good.
Yes, I loved it. I loved
Good
it.
to hear.
Good sermon.
I tried to listen to what you said.
That's very good.